Okay, we're back. Second episode of the podcast. Sorry about the issues. Talking about Dr. Willie Foster. Dr. Foster, how are you?
Great. How about you guys?
Doing okay. You're the new principal of Mail now.
Yes.
You're about close to being, December 6th, was that right?
December 2nd.
Yes. About almost 2 months in. How's it been here so far?
It's been awesome. One, the factor of when I started was different. I've told people it wasn't good or bad. It was different. So typically when you get hired as a principal in the traditional sense, you get a portion or all of the summer. And so when that happens, the building's empty. Most people are doing summery things. And so you're here usually with maybe an office person, some assistant principals, that kind of stuff. So you get time to really process and digest things, and I didn't get that. Because when I started, school was going 500 miles per hour. And but that's cool at the same time, because then you get to see things in reality versus what you think they might be like. So it was neither good or bad. It was different. It's also been really special to get caught up to what Mail is, what Mail has been, and really start to kind of think about what Mail needs to be moving forward, which has been exciting.
So what specifically do you think Mail needs, and what do you plan to do under your leadership?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the challenge for us, and I don't think this is a new challenge. I think it's been a challenge for a long time, but I think whether it's a school or an organization or anything, when you have something that's rooted in tradition, I think the balance for the people and especially the leadership of that organization is to balance the traditions and things that we value, and really making sure that we keep up. So let's say you equate that to, I shared this with the teachers on January 6th, so that was a gold day. So teachers were here, students were not. But I put up an image of Blockbuster Video in the Sears catalog. And so the Sears catalog obviously is before you guys. Did you ever have a Sears catalog in your house?
No, but there was a Sears at Oxmoor for the longest time.
Yeah.
But it closed down.
I think we had a few catalogs come in every now and then, but that was a long time ago.
So when I was a kid, the Sears catalog is how you really created your Christmas list. I mean, it was literally probably 3 or 4 inches thick, and it would have almost every Christmas gift that you could dream of in one place. And so Sears was kind of the Amazon of its day, if you will. But Sears as a business didn't really keep up. And now Sears is essentially gone. Sears catalog's been gone for a long time. And so that's an example of an organization of business that didn't evolve. Blockbuster Video, I tell that story because there was a point in time when Blockbuster Video had an opportunity to buy Netflix. At that point in time, Netflix was a DVD by mail thing. So they weren't the streaming service that we know now. But I argue that if somebody had been at Blockbuster with vision, not just with the DVD video mindset, that they could have, maybe seen what Netflix could become, and look what they are now. And so rewind that back to what I said about this school and our tradition, what we've been, and then pair that with what we're, are. So I think we have to really look at, you guys are graduating this year, both
Yep.
seniors.
Yeah.
Really, have we prepared you for life after school? That's a fundamental question, but it's a question we have to answer with honesty. And and that's so that, you guys are entering what I call a global economy. I was raised in Mount Washington, just south of here, 20 minutes. My grandparents always had a safety net of Ford Motor Company, GE, UPS, and those places are still here. But even to get jobs there, it takes a different level of skills. Right. You guys are doing digital skills that my generation never touched in high school. So continue to push that envelope in regards to what does teaching and learning look like here, what courses should be offered, what courses shouldn't be offered, and really continuing to grow and evolve and make sure that what we're doing, we lose our relevancy, so to speak. So that's something that's a long way to get to your question, but it's something I think we really are going to have to look at and really have already started. For instance, I think we need a much greater emphasis on coding. I think that's kind of become a universal skill for your generation, and really still now kind of my generation, to stay relevant. Looking at some things like engineering being offered here in our school. We have a really nice menu of math and science courses. We really don't have any that kind of combine in that true engineering sense other than calculus, physics, that kind of stuff. So really expanding the menu as much as we can, for what's needed, what's relevant, what students want to take, and still preserving what MEL is, if that makes sense.
What would you think about classes? So, like, obviously, you've talked about job skills. So what about more life skills classes, like maybe a culinary class or like what would they call
It was home
with
ec?
car? No, not home ec. Where where they did cars and stuff.
Automotive.
Like shop or automotive classes.
Sure. Yeah, wood shop
To
classes.
teach kids how to change tires, make home improvements. Because a lot of us are blessed here with parents that are very involved. That's why
Sure.
they've pushed us with the academic standards, but not all kids here are that fortunate.
Are on that path. Yeah.
So.
And I think that's something we've already started kind of talking about that stuff in some context. Many of those programs, we're going to look at the facility. So like if you went to Southern High School as an example, Southern High School, part of their magnet option is an automotive program. They have a very unique facility to teach that. So a portion of their school literally looks like a mechanic shop. It's got garage doors, it's got tools, it's got racks, it's got those kinds of things. So regardless of those things, we want to make sure that we have a facility where we can teach those things the way they should be taught, and taught to the industry standard. And so that going down that path we will have to consider our facility and what we could bring to life while we're having it at the same time, if that makes sense. So I'm absolutely not opposed to any of that. Again, I think we have to stay relevant. So I think constantly, what do we value, what is our tradition, and what are we doing and offering that keeps us relevant to make sure that every graduate from Mel High School has every advantage that we can humanly give them. If that makes sense.
And I think a lot of that too, probably, do you have to go through like the SBDM and like Dr. Polio too to get like that stuff approved, or is it more just? Why did it stop? Sorry, let's kind of go from there.
You're good.
Why does it keep? Oh my goodness. I might have to use your phone only if mine keeps messing up. Just so weird. Sorry about this.
Oh, you're good.
I apologize.
This is why we need more technology classes at our.
This is why we need more technology classes. See, now it's going.
I don't know when it cut off though.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Try turning it around on the volume button, so it's not on the power button. All right. Well, we got ours wrong, so we can continue our
We
conversation.
could just use
Okay.
Nick's for stuff.
So do you see male facilities as adequate, or would you think that maybe another campus move, like obviously not anywhere in the same future, and probably shouldn't be something a first 2-month principal should think about, but like, do you see any disadvantages to our facilities now? Because a lot of students complain of overcrowding.
Sure.
Especially around stairwell C, like you have a hallway built for X number of people, and you have X plus 150 kids trying to run through the hallways.
Well, so you ask a lot of questions there in one question. So, first and foremost, do I see a campus move? I don't think that's probably realistic. I do think that Mel in the near future, 5 to 10 years, will probably get a substantial renovation. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that we're due for. Like for instance, Manual right now is going through a renovation. So this building's pretty dated. So that renovation would probably be things like heating and air. Their schools right now are being transitioned from fluorescent lighting to LED lighting, just so that kind of stuff. So I don't know that it would greatly change the footprint of this building and what it looks like. It would be more modernizing what's already there. In regards to our size and crowding, I think we're more lucky than people realize. So really, when you look at this footprint in this building, the main building, and when you look at Gene's, we actually have a pretty good amount of square footage compared to our student enrollment. There are bottlenecks in our building for certain. And so stairwells, is something where you kind of feel that.
Okay.
But in regards to, being able to offer stuff, it's real, So, for instance, I talked about an engineering classroom. I mean, that would take a pretty robust lab that's just kind of wide open, where you can do experimental kind of things, stuff that, balls and wheels and stuff that are thrown and that kind of stuff. For students to really be able to do that stuff, you need a space to do it. And so I don't know that I answered all the parts of your question. If I didn't, correct me. I'd be happy to go back and re-answer.
I can't even remember all the parts of the question.
So I do think we'll get a renovation. I don't think it will greatly change what the building looks like. I think it'll be more of an updating kind of facelift, cosmetic stuff, heating and air stuff, which I think we desperately need.
Oh yeah, from first floor to third floor, it's insane.
There's some challenges on the third floor, like in our science classrooms that have the risers. Like I would love to get those taken out and just kind of one level, kind of clean and open. You know, that really kind of limits what can happen in those rooms. And so, you know, the thing is, we're full, but having all of Gaines, we've got pretty adequate space. The other thing, and I don't think many people realize this, but one of the challenges in high schools is when teachers don't have their own classroom. And so basically, if you have X number of classrooms, and once your number of teachers meet that number of classrooms, once you start to go above that, you have to put teachers on a cart. So literally, they travel around to empty classrooms when a teacher's on planning period. And so right now, we don't have a single teacher without a classroom.
That's great. Yeah.
That's uncommon. You know, so I can tell you there are high schools that have many teachers that are on carts. We don't have that problem here. So.
Well, I believe it. My dad, he's a biology teacher at Atherton, and he has a teacher that comes in during his planning period to teach a class, and he hates it. He absolutely despises it.
Yep.
Because
it hurts his ability to be able to just set and grade papers and catch up on things. He probably loses his computer, and again, that's not a challenge we've had here yet. So I think we have one classroom in Gaines that's unclaimed, so we could add up to one more teacher. But then where it gets challenging, like for instance, now over in Gaines, we've got a couple people that teach science, but so they don't have a lab, so they're there over there in a pretty basic classroom. So that's the stuff over time. One of the things, we moved our photo class over there. So Ms. Drexler, you know, we had to do some things to kind of retrofit a room so she could have a dark room. Yeah. And so as those things come up, you know, you gotta be responsive and work on the building that way.
So to me, it kind of seems like your goal, I guess, to like, if I was to like kind of like umbrella, like make an umbrella term for it, is to like modernize mail, but also kind of keep it updated and current.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing, and I probably beat this term to death, I use the term menu. Like, I think it's like my job. We have 2,000 kids. Those are 2,000 real human beings that have goals and ambitions and a future. It is my job to make sure that they have a menu of stuff that they connect to. And, like, yes, we have to offer a core of English, science, social studies, and math. But everybody should have something here that interests them, that they care about, and they can connect to. So like you guys, obviously the journalism pathway, you know, video stuff, photography types of things, that's something you care about. I want a student who's very into the arts programs to have things to choose from. Students that are into science, technology, and math to have things to choose from. So constantly trying to push the envelope in regards to what's on our menu, and do we truly have something for any student that comes to mail that they care about, that they're interested in, and will benefit them beyond the day that they get their diploma. And
that's what I've always liked, because I've liked, because you know, I went through Barrett to the traditional program. I've always liked how the traditional program gives you such a wide variety. Like you go to manual, and you go for that thing, and you know, if you graduate manual and you go to college, you get to college, and you don't like that thing anymore, you're out of luck, because that's
stuck a little bit, yeah.
But you know, I like how Mail has given such an extensive palette of things to try, and I've always liked that. Like I can go from, like, one year I was very social studies heavy, and you know, I took a bunch of social studies classes, and this year I've experimented with journalism and communication. I've really liked it.
Sure.
And so, you know, I might proceed to take another class of that in college. But I think that's really good. I think that's what Mail brings to a lot of students that are still undecided of what they want to do in life.
And you know what's interesting about that? I think one of the things we have to kind of name and be honest and own, like most things that we offer at the high school level, it piques students' interest. It teaches them some content along with life skills. But at the end of the day, it gives you something to connect to and to be interested in. So I use an example of myself. So when I was a student in high school, we had a school bank. And so obviously I do nothing with banking. I've never been in the finance world. But I can tell you, like, there were so many valuable things that I could still put my finger on today that I learned while I was in that class. So that was the first time I ever had to write a resume. So if you were admitted into this class, the school year started and everybody applied for one of the jobs in the bank. So I had to write a resume, I had to do an interview, and then, I did a role within the bank. So we were a fully operational bank within our school. So
That's awesome.
We had tellers, we had loan officers. I happened to be a loan officer. And so you learn about like how the financial world works. You learn about interest. You learn about credit. You learn about default if you don't pay your loan. So again, I didn't become a banker. I never had a desire to be a banker, but it was a class that obviously was very different. And there's a lot of that stuff that I still really kind of go back to today. And so, that was different than sitting in just a class that maybe I picked or didn't pick and learned some things. But that's something like I still remember much of that I did way back then today, which is kind of cool.
So could students like put actual money into an account and they could come to you,
They did.
the bank, and they could say, hey, I want to buy a school sweatshirt. Can I take out
Correct.
$20 or get loaned $20?
Lunch loans were the big thing. So
That's-
if you forgot your lunch money on a given day, you could go borrow $4, and get a loan. And so then what was interesting, students learned, I borrowed $4 from the bank. It kind of felt like free money, too good to be true. But then they learned about interest, and so if they did, if they ignored that loan very long, that $4 could turn into quite a bit more.
What was the interest rate you guys were
It's
charging?
been a long time. I don't remember that.
I hope it wasn't too obscene.
It was more than the commercial rate, just because we were kind of confined into a school year and had to make money to operate and all that kind of stuff. But
Would you want to bring something like that at Mail?
that's an example of the kind of stuff that I think could be awesome here.
That could be amazing.
Yeah.
Because I know kids that have like $60 in debt in their lunch.
Oh,
Like-
yeah.
like they-
I hate that. The
Yeah.
whole lunchroom debt thing.
Imagine just interest on that though.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
That'd be kind of funny though, just to see kids just go, I'm sorry. I think like the glass pane is just how can I help you? What's wrong today? Or what can I do?
Sure.
That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
So how do you think students have adjusted to you? Like you talk about
Yeah.
adjusting to school. Do you see students
Or
coming to
even-
you
even like the teachers too.
or the teachers?
How have they kind of reacted to your presence now in school?
Everybody has been awesome. So I'll start with students. I kind of joked about this with a few people. And I don't know if you guys were there, I can't remember. But so I was hired on a Monday night, I think. And I think it was the week of Thanksgiving. And so I remember, maybe it was the week before Thanksgiving, and I came to that football game. So really at that point, I was an official. Yeah, I haven't even met the faculty at this point.
Oh, and we cheered him on.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember that.
So I remember coming to that game and people coming up and talking to me, and I almost thought it was like an act, like it was made up and people were.
Really?
But it was amazing the way that students came up to me, introduced themselves, talked to me. Like that part here is pretty special, and I think sometimes it's taken for granted here. The fact that just genuinely good people, and there's a culture of that. Like it's not, I don't think people are saying like if you come to Mail, you have to, like, it's just the culture here when people come in. So that's been really cool. It's been neat to get to talk to the different types of students that connect in different ways to the school. Obviously, I've had the opportunity to talk to athletes. I've had opportunity to talk to students that take AP everything. I've had opportunities to talk to students that struggle, and that part has been pretty neat. And I'll tell you, kind of the common thread has been just super respectful, care about this school, and care about what they do and what they're involved in. I think the interesting thing, I think. And I'm guilty of the same thing. Like, I can tell you, looking back to when I was a student, I'm not sure that most people interact or think about or worry about the principal too much. Like, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing at school, you see your 8 teachers, and and that's so. I don't know that I want to be on the forefront every day. And it's not really my role or my job. I want to make sure that our students are learning and they're prepared, and our school's safe, and those kinds of things. So I feel like sometimes if I'm doing my job, sometimes people forget that I'm here. I kind of got off track a little bit, but so the kids have been awesome, and the staff likewise. I think there's kind of a unique crossroads here for our staff. Like, we have a pretty healthy number of people. Mail's all they've ever known, whether they went to school here or they've spent their whole teaching career here. Like, Mail's all they've ever known. But then we also have a pretty good portion of people that have taught in other places, and they were fortunate enough to be selected to be here, and they really dig it. And both of those are cool, and I think both of those are part of the story of the tradition and where like we want to get to. And so, I use the term capacity. The capacity here is very high with our teachers. I think we have people that are very good at what they do. They know their stuff. They care about young people. They care about the school, and so all of that is just made for. It's been pretty neat, to be named here. And I think one of the things being principal here, you have to understand, like, it's bigger than you. Like, it really is. Like, I'm not the first principal. I'm not going to be the last. Like, if you walk out in the lobby, you can see that. Yeah. So truly, it's like, in what way will I have the chance to leave it better than I found it? And that's pretty cool. Scary, but pretty cool. So,
Dr. Foster, if you weren't a principal, what would your, I guess, dream job or ideal career be?
something around warm weather.
Kentucky's a weird way to
It's
show
not
that.
the place for that, is it? That's a good question. So interestingly enough, I started in high school. My sister's a lawyer, so she's now a prosecutor in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
That's what you could be, right? I do want to be a lawyer.
You should go see my sister. She's very mean. No, I'm just kidding. Loves to argue, maybe is the way I should say it.
Gotta love a challenge.
So I can tell you in high school I was a little intrigued by the law stuff, and I actually went to college and I started in a nursing program.
Really?
And I got to the point it was about time to do clinicals, and it just wasn't me. And so I was always kind of drawn to teaching and coaching, and so I changed gears.
So I remember you were a football coach for a little bit.
I was. So I changed gears and switched over to that, and I actually graduated with a PE and health degree. Never taught PE and health one day. So I went back and did a master's degree in teaching students with disabilities, and I had to get a reading and writing endorsement. And so I pretty much taught English exclusively while I was a special education teacher. But, other than that, I think I would do something that had leadership involved. I think I would probably do something that involved people.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the interesting things about me and me being at Mail is that, I was an assistant superintendent in Oldham County. And part of what brought me back to being a principal was really missing the pace and what goes on in a school. And so, I've told people, and this is probably a little over dramatic, but you feel like you don't want to just in your career in an office by yourself. I love the craziness of what goes on here. It's kind of cool. So going back to the question, if I did something different, it would be something would be I couldn't be an office job. It couldn't be disconnected from people. And I would also tell you, at some point, I really do want to get to somewhere where it's warm. No joke. So I could see myself, maybe sell stuff. I could also see myself doing something where I didn't have to be the boss at some point in my career.
I definitely see you as a salesman. You got just a nice demeanor about you.
Yeah.
It's just easy to talk to.
Yeah.
Well, wait, what do you mean where you're not the boss? You're just working. Well, besides the obvious, you're not working for somebody. But I mean,
Well, it's a good question. I think so. This is my 7th year now, I guess, as a principal. I worked at the central office level for 3.5 years. So doing that, you really get accustomed to handling and dealing with other people's problems.
Right.
And not necessarily all completely in the negative sense, because I don't want to paint that picture, but, real life stuff, with employees and kids and families. There's bad stuff that goes on, there's conflict that goes on, there's life, I've had employees that I have actually had a teacher driving on the way to work, was killed in a car accident, cancers, heart attacks, different, real life happens. And so, when you're the boss, you deal with that. And so, it is something it's on your shoulders all the time. One of the realities of this job, on a Saturday and Sunday, I'm not at work, but I'm never not at work. I don't get that luxury. And so, to be able to go somewhere where it's warm and not have to do that would be kind of cool.
So you just missed the security blanket of it not all falling on you?
Sure, yeah. Which, right now I sign up for that and I kind of like it. But at some point I could, say it would be really nice to not have to worry about, where my cell phone is. And, that's a little different for me right now. So that's a cool question. I'm glad you asked that one.
So speaking of real life, obviously we all just had our class meetings, learned you're a big Chick-fil-A guy.
Yeah,
learned a little bit.
Big talk about your Chick-fil-A
funny,
analogy.
Learned a little bit about your life and how you and your sister are the only two in your family to go to college. What was it like growing up with, obviously when you got through high school and then you decided to go to college? What was it like for you personally? Because you're the older one, correct?
I'm the younger.
Or you're the younger one. So what was it like for you to have the expectations of being the second person to go to college? Not only one following what I can only assume to be a really good example in your lawyer sister, but also to be still first two in your family.
There's it was interesting. I've actually talked to people about my mom, and she, I said to you guys, I hope I said it, but she was kind of like Superwoman. She made stuff happen with very little. We never knew really how much we did struggle. She made sure that we kind of had what we needed, and sometimes we didn't get much more than that. But one of the things that was always very clear with her, like we were going to school, and we were going to do that. So really, what happened, and so it probably happened with my sister's example and making sure that I was around people that could answer the questions. Like, I had to figure out the system, and so I had to figure out, how do I get admitted somewhere? How do I figure out financial aid? What does financial aid mean? I had to take on loan debt. I was fortunate; I never had to borrow much. I was able to kind of connect the dots, but. So what was it like? I had to be kind of a little bit of a self-starter.
Mm-hmm.
It was something I had to really kind of go out and figure it out on my own. The other thing, like some of what I appreciate now looking back, and I always struggled with this with my own daughter. Like, I had to buy my first car, and looking back, I think that was probably a good thing, because I see a lot of young people that really take that for granted. Had to pay for my own insurance, that kind of stuff. So, I don't think it was greatly different from most kids, other than there was an expectation there, and I'd really got no financial support to do it, and really just like support in general. I mean, the expectation was laid, and it was almost like you got to figure out how to make it work. And I'm thankful for that looking back now. And I will tell you, as a dad, I struggle, because one of the things that you do as a parent is you want to make sure your kids had it kind of better than you did, So I like my daughter's a sophomore at Campbellsville, and we bought her a car, and we've helped her with financial aid. And so I hope she appreciates that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take it for granted. So looking back, like, what was it like? I had to figure it out. But then I've tried to make sure with my own children, that they, have a little easier path and track to get there. And I guess the other thing, I'm so grateful that nobody ever made an excuse for me. And I think part of that, I was lucky to have my mom, but I was also lucky to have the teachers and coaches that I did. And that, just very, very fortunate for that.
Cool. So we're back. Sorry
Small
about
commercial
that.
break.
Yeah,
Brought to you by Chick-fil-A, the male high school of fast foods.
Awesome.
Dr. Foster, when it was announced that you were going to be our new principal, there were a lot of little, internet memes made of you, and they're not.
Not offensive memes, but as you say, we have a culture here, and we, every new guy needs a poking fun of.
Sure. For example, there was when you had your Chick-fil-A class meeting.
That was such
Analogy.
a fun. Are you a fan of The Office?
Yeah. Have you seen The Office?
Bits and pieces.
Do you remember the scene where who is it? Was it?
It's Creed.
Yeah, Creed asked Pam, Corbin needs to find the difference between these two pictures.
No.
Don't
Okay.
show him do you have Gustavo rock for the Spider-Man?
I can just show him. Because people were saying that.
So it wasn't anything mean, but we were comparing you versus lookalikes.
Okay.
And so first one up, we have Gustavo Rock from the
Yeah.
Nickelodeon show Big Time
on
Rush.
Big Time Rush, people were comparing you in appearance to their producer, Gustavo Rock. Another one was from the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
That one's my favorite. I like that one.
The villain from that. I forget his name. Yeah. Kingpin. I'm sorry, Kingpin. Just it.
But
now, of course, they're not necessarily trying to be offensive to you or anything, but they were just more in comedic taste.
Sure.
And that's how you know that the students love you, because Jerry never got a meme.
That is
That's
true.
all I'm
I
gonna
didn't
say.
see a lot of memes with Dr. Jerry when he was here. But if I can ask you about your process in coming here, are you allowed to elaborate on that? Kind of like how that went down?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you timeline wise?
Yeah, because a teacher that I have on Purple Days, she was there at the meetings or at the like the kind of big
The interview
process
itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But so what was it like for you coming in?
So the whole process, again, middle of the year different. So traditional, not traditional program or traditional school sense, but traditional in regards to hiring process for school. Traditionally, jobs are posted springtime. Interviews happen towards the end of the school year, early part of the summer. You get hired somewhere early part of the summer, and you're ready to roll for school. And so this was very different because it was middle of the school year. So everything about it was a little bit different. So really, the one thing I think I need to go back and kind of share all of this to make it kind of connect all the dots. But probably about a year ago, I was in my 3.5 years removed from being, at that point, about 2.5, going on 3 years, being removed from being a principal. I was in the chair of assistant superintendent and was starting to get some, I guess you would use the term interest in regards to possibly looking at superintendent positions. And, so for the first time, we had a couple situations where, we talked about doing that and moving. And of course, typically if you're a superintendent, you have to live in the district in which you're superintendent. And so it was really the first time in my professional life, grown-up life, that my wife and I really had that conversation. My wife owns a hair salon. And, so that's a factor for us. We're also close to family. We're very close to her family, and they're very involved in kind of what we do and our children and all that kind of stuff. And so there was an opportunity last year that kind of forced a conversation and a decision. And to be frank with you, what came out of that, which is kind of weird, was the fact that I kind of said to myself and finally said out loud, like, I'm not sure really this is what I want to chase right now. I think I really miss being a principal. So that was strange that conversation led into, and then you can't make this up, within about 7 days, I had a connection who told me the principal job at Mail might be coming open. And of course that was early, that was probably about this time last year. And so that played out and took a while. So Dr. Jerry retired in a sense. I think he struggled with it for a little while, but it ended up kind of getting pushed back a little bit until December 1. So I think the job posted somewhere mid-September, I think. Might have been October. And so what happens is, you have to apply. There's a pretty formal process, almost any school district in which you become a principal. So you do an old school application just like everybody else. You do a letter of interest, resume, that kind of stuff. And then you go through a screening. So the first step of principal selection has nothing to do with the school. It actually happens at the district level. So I interviewed with Dr. Polio, probably about 4 or 5 other folks. And so, really at that point, they're looking at who would they be comfortable with, generically speaking, in any of our schools. So they don't really get to pick the principal of a school, but they get to kind of have their hand into who would be a good fit as an instructional leader, as a building principal anywhere in Jefferson County. And then so obviously then from that point, they send on a list of potential people, finalists, if you will, to the school council. So site-based decision-making council. Some people just call it SBD. And so I interviewed with that group on November 18th, which was a Monday. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll never forget that. I parked over in the Beans parking lot and I just kind of observed, kind of watched what happens after school, which is always an interesting take. And so I interviewed over in Gaines in one of the classrooms. So it was an art classroom, and the interview was different. So here, I had been given an opportunity to prepare a presentation. So the very first thing, there was no introduce yourself. I actually had the committee introduce themselves to me. So I don't know what they thought of that. I guess it was okay because they hired me. So you do a presentation, and really the floor was mine. To talk about what I wanted to talk about, my experiences, what I thought was relevant to this job, and kind of short-term goals, longer-term vision, that kind of stuff. And then it went into more of traditional Q&A, but very open-ended. It was more conversational, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I think I was one of the first. I would have had to have been one of the first interviews because I think they had interviews up until about 8 p.m. And then so I got a call that evening, at like, I want to say 8:15. Don't quote me on the exact time, but sometime after 8 p.m. And so they had gone into, you know, closed session and, you know, wanted to offer me the job, and I accepted. And so the Brook and Breck was there, and I think tweeted it. And I don't know that I've ever owned a cell phone that went as crazy as it did that night.
Really?
Yeah, for about 3 hours.
Oh, props to us.
So from about 8:30 until about 11:30 p.m., it was amazing.
Wow.
So it was cool. It was exciting. And, you know, at that point, it was a little bittersweet. I love my job in Oldham County. I love the people I worked with. I mean, I was treated very, very well. You know, it was a good group of people. So that's always mixed emotions. And again, middle of the year. So I had to say goodbye to people while we were up and running, doing the thing, you know, doing what we do. And, but then, you know, so then it kind of catches up and connects to what I said earlier. Like, so then getting to come to like football games where the kids were amazing and people had been so, you know, just overly welcoming. You know, that's been kind of neat. So it's kind of a long story that takes a few turns.
Did you have the chance to meet Dr. Jerry before you left?
So ironically, I did. And so he and I got to spend about probably, if you add up the different times collectively, probably about a day and a half. And so, and that's helpful. You know, it's helpful to get context, and it's helpful to kind of understand some things. And it's always very important, you know, as a principal to know a little bit of the backstory. I mean, ultimately, you know, you could hire 100 people for this job, and they would do it 100 different ways. I mean, I get that and know that, and have done the job before and supervised principals for a while. So, but it's nice to kind of know where things are, kind of how they got there, what was the thinking, you know, whether it be budget, staffing, you know, that kind of stuff. It's nice to know that stuff. So he is such a giving man. You know, he's hard to talk to and not just feel better when you walk away. So he's just so good to me. And, you know, I'm a little jealous right now because he's in Florida, you know, retired. You know, living it up. So, I mean, it's kind of tempting. But no, he was, and actually, I was going to mention this, I forgot. I actually had Dr. Jury for a couple of my principal certification classes 12, 15 years ago. It's been a long time. And so he was always just so, the same guy that he was when he retired, just very good, you know, just, you know, a little bit of a storyteller, and but you knew when he talked you needed to listen, you know.
Right.
So.
Did he leave you with any parting advice for the school or how to manage it?
He did, you know, he did, and I think, you know, one of the things that I'll remember, you know, about that time we got to spend together. I think there's a balance of whenever you become principal, there's things that are, especially they're perceived to be changed, and sometimes they're not really intentionally done to be changed, just to change stuff, but that's kind of the way it's perceived and it plays out and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, I think somebody like Dr. Jury's so good at giving you some context of, you know, there's some things where you want to go slow, and there's some things like put your foot to the gas and roll. And so he had his own way of communicating that, which was kind of helpful and appreciated, and you know, it was just neat. It was neat to hear his perspective. You know, it was interesting. I wouldn't have picked him, but like it meant a lot for him to leave. He left 3 plants here.
Did he?
And,
really?
and
These plants, all right.
And it meant a lot. So there's one there, and there's one up there, and one over here in the corner. And you know, it meant a lot for him to leave those to me.
Really?
And you know, so he made it a point to tell me about them, and so I water them once a week. And you know, so that kind of stuff just means a lot to you. And you know, so I got the chance to ask him about the frame stuff that's on the wall. So most of it is, you know, so some of that stuff was pretty special, and I made sure that it stayed up. And you know, so you always look at, you know, what happened before, and you don't want to come in and just like implode it. And obviously, you know, I've tried to do the same thing. So.
Yeah, we had a podcast with Jerry that had to get scrapped due to technical difficulties.
Yeah,
but like, you know, we talked to him,
yeah.
and it was because I mean, one thing we like about you is that like you're all over the place. Like students see you, students know you. With Jerry, you know, he was the type of principal that was behind this. Kind of like you said, if everything's right, you would know that he's there. That's really what he did in his time here. But we got the chance to it was my first in-depth conversation with him. I don't know about you.
I think I might have had 1 or 2 before.
But, you know, he was talking about, you know, retiring, warm weather, and he was talking about how his love for things. And he had a funny story about, I don't know if it's that bulldog, but one of the bulldogs, he lent to his son-in-law?
Yeah. I think
it was someone close, son-in-law, and who worked at Manual. And he said, hey, we do a funeral thing for your dog. Can we borrow the statue real quick? and apparently the manual kids had like written all sorts of
all kinds
buffoonery
of, like,
all over it.
things
So
all
he had to
wow.
get it like replaced, repainted. It was,
He gave it to Mr. E, and I think like his kids like repainted it. Because
Yeah.
I think they were going to the
Okay.
game. Yeah.
but so nice little segue. So as you know, homecoming's coming up soon.
Sure.
We've been voting and such, and you know we do Spirit Week, which you know the students we get out of our dress code, we get out of our natural habitat. We like to have fun and support. Will we be seeing you participate in any of the themes?
Pretty good chance.
That's what I like to see, because a lot of students, like, you know, a bunch of people say that we don't do Spirit Week like we used to, like it's gone downhill, but
Sure.
I really wish that'd change.
Yeah.
We're gonna go all out this year, am I right? Twins Day?
Of course.
Of course,
no
Twins Day.
doubt. Dr. Foster, as we wrap up here, I want to go through a bit of a round robin of your favorites.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you your favorite blank, and you'll just name it first thing that comes to your mind.
Super Zone's supposed to be quick here.
Yeah, just kind of as quick as you can.
No hesitation.
All right. Or very little. Maybe brief explanation if you want to, but it's kind of all up to you.
Okay.
All right. Favorite movie?
Tommy Boy.
Really?
Ooh.
Okay. Favorite book or novel?
12th Angel.
Favorite actor?
Wow, it's a tough one. Favorite actor. Matthew McConaughey.
Favorite actress / celebrity crush?
Come back to that one.
Okay. Favorite villain? Yeah. If you want, we can come back to it later.
Okay.
Favorite ice cream flavor, and why is it salted caramel?
What?
Salted caramel is the best ice cream flavor.
No, it's not.
It is good.
See?
Caramel's good.
Milkshakes are better than ice cream. Changed my
I'm
mind.
kind of old school. I like plain chocolate ice cream.
Really? Okay. Favorite movie character?
Movie character. I like funny movies. You know, so I'm in the Step Brothers, Wedding Crashers, Tommy Boy. You know, kind of
I'd hope it'd be someone from your favorite movie.
genre. Can't beat Chris Farley.
Chris Farley is such a
pretty fun.
god.
Classic band down by the river, all that.
Yeah.
Favorite TV show?
But going back to characters, Vince Vaughn's hard to beat.
Vince Vaughn, yeah.
Yeah, hard to beat. He's pretty good.
Favorite TV show?
Gosh, you know, I'm not much of a TV watcher. I have gotten into the Netflix stuff a little bit.
No Disney Plus?
I don't do Disney Plus.
That's fair.
He's anti-Disney.
No, I'm
No,
not into Disney. And
well-
with kids, you got to be a little bit Disney. But
He hates childhood wonder.
Okay.
you know, I kind of like the one of the things I hate about streaming is like the sitcom thing has ended and it's more reality shows kind of stuff. But I'm a sucker for the old, like, you know, like good-hearted family sitcoms, like Home Improvement in the day, and you know all those things. That's kind of what I grew up on.
I got
So
you.
I liked Married with Children, if we're talking family.
I did watch a little bit of that. Yeah.
Kind of Full House kind of stuff.
Sure.
Favorite candy?
Anything chocolate.
Okay. Favorite restaurant, and why is it Chick-fil-A?
It's not Chick-fil-A.
It's not?
I'm actually not
Yo.
a big fan of Chick-fil-A.
Right on, it's overrated. Thank you. What? That's gotta
I
be a thumbnail.
appreciate the culture of Chick-fil-A and
That
how
it's
they do things.
overrated.
But not the
chicken
food?
is not
The
that
food- the
good.
food's okay. I just don't go out of my way to get it.
That's respect. I respect you so much more now that you said that.
Yeah. Favorite restaurant, you know, I mean, I don't like overpaying for stuff that like I could cook myself. You know, I like a good steak. I like a good steakhouse. You know, if it was something I was gonna like treat myself, treat my wife to, probably Stony River.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite country artist?
Country is my favorite type of music. Eric Church.
Okay. Favorite classic rock band?
Eagles.
Well, favorite song from the Eagles?
They're all good. That's a loaded question.
That's a cop-out answer.
It is.
Yeah, they're all good.
They're all good.
Favorite NBA team?
Not much of an NBA guy. I would probably have to say the Lakers, just because
Rip Kobe.
R.I.P.
when I was growing up, like, you know, they were the thing.
Favorite NFL team?
Denver Broncos.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Favorite sport?
Football.
Which football?
In regards to college football.
Oh, okay.
In regards to like sports that like you can still play when you get old and out of shape, golf.
That always seems to be kind of like the old person's sport, at least to me. It seems
Wow,
like.
way to call him
I'm
old.
just
Way to
saying.
call him old.
No, that's fair.
Yeah, you're not getting a recommendation from him.
Okay. My last question for you: your favorite nickname?
For myself, gosh, I don't think I get to pick that. As long as it's nice, I guess any of them are.
Do you care if students have a nickname for you?
Yeah, I get it.
Could students call you Willie, or would you prefer Dr. Foster?
No, we
Don't-
can keep it formal.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
All right. I just got one more thing. Do you have any questions for us as we've been here for 4 years? If you need any opinions since you're still new?
You know, I think the important question for students to be able to answer while they're here and when they graduate is, you know, what are things that we could do or could have done to prepare you in a different, maybe more, even better way? I think it's an important question for us to ask, and students rarely get asked that question.
Do you want to go first?
So your question is what?
What Male could have done better to help us?
I don't know. Everyone kind of talks about having a life skills class,
Mhm.
like teaching like taxes or home ec or like auto body or woodworking kind of stuff. But I never really saw that I saw it as very like career dependent.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that would necessarily help all students. I don't know. I feel like because well, obviously we've only been at Male,
Mhm.
so it's kind of like what how do you compare?
You don't know what you don't know.
Right. So I don't know. That's tough. That's a tough question.
If it were me, because first, I'm gonna take advantage of the dress code, wearing hoodies to school. But I wish we would have kept a little stricter dress code, just because, people I know Mr. E, because we're having a podcast with him soon. He's like, no science shows that dress codes make anything better. But I just, for me, there's just a certain feeling you get knowing that you have that sort of standard above. You can excel and you can look good while you excel, because people complain you made a big deal about the lanyards and whatnot, and people are like, oh, why do I have to wear lanyards, or oh, why do I have to be in dress code? But when you're out in the real world preparing us like Male is supposed to be doing, you don't get to go to your boss and say, I know you have a standard of dress here, but
I'm gonna
I don't
wear a
want
t-shirt
to.
instead. Thanks.
Like,
can't do that.
I know I work at a bank, but I'm gonna roll up in a t-shirt and sweats. I would personally I like that, a good dress code, just to have that.
It's funny. I've told people that, fundamentally, and I really believe this, and I don't know that everybody that I share this to believe agrees with me when I say it, but I believe that your all's generation is not that much different than previous generations, but I do believe that right now young people have this innate driving question that they need answered, which is why. The lanyards is a great example. Most people really don't understand why we do lanyards, and it really isn't like a dress code thing. It's, unfortunately, your generation is being raised in a time where school shootings are real. And so most people don't realize how that works. So if there were to be, unfortunately, heaven forbid it will never happen here, one of those issues in the school, knock on wood, yes, both hands. Most people don't know that when law enforcement gets here, if they can identify you, you're quarantined, you're locked down, face on the floor. And so, it's one of those things. I think sometimes people perceive that things are just picked out of midair, and yeah, let's add that on too. And let's do lanyards and know this and know that. And, so that's one of those things where I think, but the good thing, and I kind of like it. Some people don't; it gets on their nerves. But your all's generation just wants to understand why.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
I noticed that people want to know why. I just I wish it was stricter, honestly. People make fun of Sabato for all the crap that he did, but I guarantee you nobody would be slipping up on dress codes if they were walking by Sabato's room, because he used to be handing out red slips like candy. Because I'm guilty of it myself, so I'm not gonna sit here mightier than thou. If I'll do it because I could get away with it. If teachers were strict on everybody, everyone would follow the dress code, and you'd have the one or two stranglers, but majority, because people do it now. I feel like just because it's comfy, but because most people will let them get away with it.
Your question was, I guess, what has Male done to prepare us for the real world? Is that right?
Well, then
What it could do better.
What could it do better? Well, I don't know. If I can kind of answer the opposite of your question, if that kind of makes sense. What it's done well is I think has promoted this sense of culture, like you were talking about before. so especially when it comes to like sporting events and even just like general like class happenings. I don't know. What I wish it could do better was kind of, I guess this is more like a select thing, is just have more like hands-on kind of lessons and stuff. And I don't know how you would really promote that amongst the teachers, because it might be different depending on the subject. But like
stuff like Creek does?
yeah, well, Krieg or even photo or I guess journalism too. Like it's a lot of what you do is just like with your hands, you're able to just be creative and just do whatever.
Sure.
Now, of course, I'm sure with like math,
Like math,
like you can't really do a lot of hands-on.
but I think we
stuff.
do a good job of that. You know, we have labs. Creek goes to the Creek. Journalism gets to roam
Do
the
this
school
podcast.
and cover what they think they need to do.
I just wish that there was, I guess, more of like satisfying kind of work that a student can do besides just like just worksheets and Khan Academy and
I hate content
whatever
so
else.
much. I think online work should be banned.
I don't know about that.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get, because there's such horrible teachers, the online work,
Yeah.
and if you don't get it, you're just wasting time. But that's just. I also think homework in itself, like not to be that kid, but like homework. Not now papers I get,
Yeah.
projects I get,
Yeah.
but like homework in itself, because my parents can't help me with my homework. They have no idea what I'm doing. So if I don't get it, I'm either cheating or I'm taking a 0. And if I do get it, then that's just busy work,
That was almost like a confession you just made.
If I don't get it and my parents don't get it, how am I going to do the work?
That's
Tate?
true.
Research tells you that homework really has very little impact
It
on
does.
learning.
I believe it.
I think that's kind of all the questions that we had today, Dr. Foster. I know you have a podcast coming up too. If you want to talk about that just very briefly.
Yeah, so you're talking about truly building the plane as you fly it. So one of the things I've been, intrigued about podcasting and blogging for probably about 6 months, actually a little longer, 7 months I guess it would be. So I got a chance to meet a guy named Adam Welcome. Adam Welcome is an author, former principal, and now he pretty much travels and does professional learning, that kind of stuff. So he's kind of an educational guru guy. And so he came to the area last June, and I got a chance to go have dinner with him, and it was pretty cool. And it was pretty cool to connect with him. And one, I related to him. I remember one of the things he said that I'll never forget. When he became a principal, like he said automatically, like I want to do it different. And I felt like, and I feel like that I've kind of been one and the same. Like, this is not like I don't want to sit behind a desk and be viewed to be like disciplinarian, like rubber stamp. I have no interest in doing it. So I've always tried to do it a little different. And so we just had a really good conversation. It was neat to meet him. It was neat for him to just kind of push my thinking, and hopefully I pushed his in some ways. But he, at one point, in our conversation said, "Do you blog?" And it kind of stumped me. I typically don't get stumped very often. The villain question stumped me. And it was one of those, well, do you podcast? No. And he talked about how easy it was. You should, da-da-da-da-da. And, it was one of those things, like, it kind of left me with this thought of, I've really never thought that what I've had to say or share was blog-worthy or podcast-worthy. And so when you get curious about stuff, you look into it. And so really what I want to do is I want to tell the story of my first year back as a principal, And so I also am fortunate that I have people that I think will talk. And so my hope is to talk about leadership and the role of principal. And sometimes it's way less complicated than it's made to be. That it's about coming to work, rolling up your sleeves, and just doing the work. And even when it's hard. And there are days that when you're a principal, and there are days you get in a car and you feel really good. You can put your finger on some good things that happen. There's some days that are very humbling, and I think that's the good thing about that is I think that means that this form of leadership is just like anybody else. And regardless of what job you do, there's going to be good days. There's going to be days that will remind you like you're a human, and you're working with humans, and that happens. And so, I've got some plans, I've got some thoughts, and I would love some help. I know you guys have talked to me about that.
Do you have a name?
I do, and there's so one of the things I want to do is I want to leak out the about there. So I envision this platform for the blog part with with an about link.
Yeah.
So if you click on the about, it tells you why.
Everything about it.
And so so the name would be Show Up and Lead, and so the about would explain it. And so there you go.
So what we were thinking, and no, not I'm not. But so we were thinking, so because maybe obviously your audience is going to be towards adults in leadership, stuff like that, and we were thinking because obviously we have some youth leaders. Tate's been a leader in our grade for a while.
Thank you. I wouldn't.
And we got other kids interested in leadership. So we were thinking if it was all right with you to plug your podcast as well on our site.
Be awesome.
And we were thinking we were going to give you your own little tab, and we're going to call it. It was either Foster's Focus
or
Willie's Wisdom.
Yeah.
I like both of those.
We like alliteration over at the BNB.
I like both of those. Yeah. So I'll tell you, and I have a guest in mind for episode 1, which I think will be cool, and I can share it already because he's a pretty good friend of mine.
Sure.
I think this will kind of put pressure that he can't tell me no.
He's leaking it now.
So there's a guy named Rob Folk who happens to be the principal now of Iroquois High School. And, I think in this community, most people would connect Iroquois High School to a pretty rough place. And so literally the same day that I started at Middle High School, he began principal at Iroquois High School. He'd been at Moore. And so really did a fantastic job turning that around and getting more to a whole different level of respect, where it's a place where students want to attend and people want to come work, and really built a pretty cool thing there. And so I don't know the whole story, but apparently he was asked to go and try to help Moore, or try to help Iroquois and leave Moore, and that's hard. And because he left behind 4 or 5-ish, I'm not exactly sure how many years of work there, good people, connections, to go help in a different place. And so to me, that's the kind of story that I want to tell. And so so that's the kind of thing. I just want to be able to have conversations and let people talk. And sometimes I think the jobs that principals and leaders do is, one, it's made far more complicated than it really is, but it's also, it tends to be a little mythical, and it's not. I think most people really sit and kind of listen to kind of the thinking and the approach to stuff. They'd be like, oh, it's not too complicated. And so that's kind of the hope. And the other thing, I'm very passionate about the pipeline of principals. I worry about it. Actually, my doctorate was about dispositions, preferred dispositions for school principals. And so when I wrote my dissertation and defended that, I conducted a study about that. But I worry about the pipeline of people who want to lead a school. And it takes a toll on you mentally and physically. And, and so I hope it inspires, maybe a few to do it that maybe wouldn't think about it. I hope it inspires people that are doing it to look at it and again, maybe take a different approach, not feel locked into the way that like the cookie cutter way of being a principal, pushing the envelope. Like one of the things, like, I'm not afraid to have fun with kids. Some principals don't feel like they're allowed to do that. That's crazy. There's no reason why you're locked into that mode. And I want to be human and be a principal. But I will tell you that comes with give and take. Right. And there's good and bad with that. So that's a long answer to your question about the podcast. So I'm excited about it. I'm going to commit to 1 a month for a year.
Right.
See where that goes.
So you got 12 episodes of Dr. Willie Foster coming on the BNB site.
Yes. Willie's Wisdom, yes.
Woo!
Dr. Foster, I want to thank you for allowing us to come have a podcast with you despite the technical issues.
That's
all right.
Technical difficulties.
We'll see you in the halls, and we'll see you next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.